Okay, so I'll read that last sentence one more time. Then I saw the surface utterly flat and motionless part very gently, with an incising along a strict line, the crown of a human head emerging from the deeps. Staring at the mirror with the back of my head, peering into that bright darkness like the glowing, plasmatic substance of the sun moldered into something older, more distantly primeval, the Sabbath of sunlight given a bath in the darkness that dyes it white, so white that in its brightness it blinds, it scotches light from sight, it absconds with sight, leaving light behind. A man of sorts had emerged, stepped up from out of the deeps, having apparently walked underwater up that frightful incline. Now, at this instant, the crown of his head had parted the water, and now, through the lens I was looking through, the back of my head being the perspicuous element in me, circumspect, tenuous, but coming to the fore in moments like this, with a violence on the order of the fundamental, this man whose eyes are now locked onto mine, as if mine dangled on a stick before his in lurid enticement, eyes possessed of a sort of molecular cruelty, suffused with a languorous aspect bespeaking of climes unlike this one. Those worlds hurled into the universe by gods outraged by the booty entombed in realms beyond the astral. In those plangent lands where this man reprimanded the very elements for the audacity of their hubris and the ferocious heat of their ardor, a big ugly head, punctuated by two eyes half alive but shining, a face utterly white and cleanly shaven, the jowls thick as a soggy brick hanging limp from the stick of his chin tilted, giving him a regal, affected air. He was wearing a green butler's outfit. I saw it by means of the sinister vistas borne behind my mind in the anterior quadrants of my eyes. I watched him stride with heavy steps across the half-mile of the shallows, the water coming up to his waist, cinched tight in a wonderful cummerbund. The magnificence of his passage was eclipsed, bested by the glare whose hard stare emblazoned faces in my brain, a gallery of old fellows of satanic wrath who had once thrashed around in the astral realm, making a name for themselves, beings of clout, beings of renown. I watched unamazed through the perfectly limpid element of darkness, whose image was reflected in the mirror visible with the back of my head as the butler came up from the deeps, scene of my mother's demise, gruesome entombment, having a body ruined by fishes like that. He strode with heavy steps, I say, inexorable, indefatigable, the ineluctable progress of a man with the most curious gills on his throat, clean-shaven and gleaming like the scales of a fish lying on the beach on a day of violent sunlight, his gills busy with working, running with water in little rivulets catching harlot sunlight, making squiggly little silver streams. I regarded lividly the emaciation of my brain starving to death in the gales of my pain. I stared intently, without fascination, at the machination of his gills in pulsation and a great spillage of water. Now they were sucking the air out of the atmosphere, working in place of his lungs, operating according to a form of respiration unknown to science, diabolical, practical, a life hack, charming, like a farmer at the fair, dressed in his Sunday best, sporting a belt buckle obelisk. As I said, out of these gills of dual function, little streams of water were forming rivulets, piddling onto the color of his stiff suit, Venus green, old couch cushion green, split pea soup green. On the lapels were loud brass buckles. I examined his face in the mirror with the back of my head, my eyes staring with blind sight into the eye of a light bulb burning bright. His face was myriad with lines. Butlery, it seems, is savage. Butlery, it seems, is freak. Butlery, it seems, is tedious. Butlery, it seems, isn't for me. I watched him clean the house. What a wayward eye detecting infinitesimal mote, those roaming asteroids of dust, fungoid in collision with the fundus of the eye, careening into the sockets of the brain, scalding the pan on which it set, peripatetic sojourner through the air, both orbed and impaled in a shaft of light, a cone of butter-colored refulgence elucidating the face of the butler, going about his task, there being something in his posture, his manner, as he was busy with this menial work, that elevated him above the maid, the janitor. A vortex of formality converged on his face, stiff and with eyes half-lidded, the mouth solemn in a sort of regal relaxation, his salty, sweet, and sour sauce eyes gleaming with the lights of ancient fires expired in eons fleeting, in ages racing away from us, leaving us stranded on this side of time, encased in space. I thinking these things as I watched the butler squeeze out his mop and put it in its place, and with a slow panning of his far-flung albatross eyes, without smiling, take my father by the hand gently, the way I saw him pick up tissue paper off the floor, as if he were holding a dying bird, and lead him through the doorway into the bedroom where the two of them vanished out of sight, the hinges sighing as if dying inside by the sight of it, the butler, my sister, my brothers, my father and I, now hopelessly, grossly, frightfully intertwined. The end. Take it slow.